Hello and welcome to The Business of Storytelling from Moore's Law Media in association with Vimeo, the platform with everything you need to make, manage and share brilliant videos at vimeo.com. This is the show where I, Neil Moore, speak to content creators, content commissioners about what they do, why they do it so well, and what we can learn from them so that we can tell better stories for our businesses as well. Today, I'm joined by someone I've known for many, many years. She was a managing director of Channel News Asia. She was a chief customer officer at MediaCorp. So she knows her storytelling, she knows her media, but now she's the chief marketing officer for Singlife. So we're going to find out how storytelling can influence insurance buying. Debra, thank you very much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
So, Debra, before we get into storytelling and all that, just give us the sort of highlights of your storied career.
I started as a broadcast journalist, right? And then in that realm, you travel, you cover political stories. I became editor. I ended up as assignments editor and had to lead the coverage of the tsunami, 26 December tsunami across Asia, right? Because Channel News Asia was around then, and everybody was awake. All the buses were awake. Every single boss was awake. So the buck had to stop here. It was a little bit scary, but I had to, And we never covered anything of that scale before, right? So that was one of the big things which I remember my career, right? I had to send out crews and journalists out to the region. They'd never done any training on disaster coverage or relief coverage. All sorts of things I had to do. I had to get cash to them. I had to tap on a civil service agency's staff fund to pass money to my guys on the ground. We had to provide counseling for them. I had to learn after that we needed a stash of US dollars cash in my safe in the office. So I covered that, and then in 2005, I left MediaCorp for the first time. And I joined a it's a big conglomerate, right, called Werns. It had everything from cars and properties. It was like 120 over subsidiaries, big messy Congo, going through change management. And I was head of group comms and investor relations. And then a few years after that, I went back to MediaCorp as chief editor, and then became managing director of Channel News Asia, which meant English, Malay, Chinese, Tamil news across the board. Long story short, after Mr. Kuan Yew died and the last election in 2015, I moved on to the entertainment realm and managed the entertainment properties for English, and then eventually becoming chief customer officer, handling all of the platforms, right? So in other words, you're in charge of the P&L of English, Malay, Chinese, Tamil entertainment, right? It's a very long story, right? And then after that I became CMO, and then I left to join another company, and I did 9 different jobs in that company, and then currently I'm at Singlife, and I sell insurance because I'm the chief marketing officer of Singlife.
One of your stories, because we've known each other in the past, one of the stories of yours that I find most fascinating is that you were sort of one of the people leading the coverage of Lee Kuan Yew's funeral, which was probably the biggest thing to happen in the nation ever.
It was the most important job I had to do in my life. Yeah. Was and still is the most important job I had to do in my life. And I'm just glad it went. The funeral was very touching for everybody. It's just too much to go into every single detail, but I'm just glad it went all right.
Hell yeah.
And we gave him a good send-off.
So compared to tsunamis and Lee Kuan Yew's funeral, being CMO of Singlife is easy, right?
Easy peasy.
So this podcast is obviously all about storytelling. That is my particular passion. I know that you being the CMO, you're responsible for lots of different modes of communicating with your customers and your audience. But we're focused on storytelling because I think it's one of the things, no matter what technology comes and goes, I think that remains central.
Exactly.
That may be my biased view as somebody who does that and sells that.
My biased view too.
But yeah, well, this is what I'm hoping, because you have that journalism background. I trained as a journalist. I didn't work as one very much. I jumped the fence and joined the sort of media sales guys. They seem to be making more money.
Yeah, definitely.
So why is storytelling important to your role now? You've gone from journalism, you went to comms, that makes sense. Yeah. But now you're on marketing. It is a different discipline. So what is the role of storytelling in your role now?
So I do not only marketing, I do brand and comms as well. So it's brand, comms, and marketing across the entire organization. Content is king. That's my bias again. I've always been trained that content is king. If you have no content, you can't tell a story. Storytelling is what engages people, what makes people excited, how you emotionally connect with people. And that's what you need to do. You need to tell a story that is relevant to them, that they can relate to, that is that, that people find affinity with.
So you said, emotional storytelling, emotional connection
yeah.
is important, but insurance is almost infamously sort of dull and dry. So how are we going to do this?
You need to tell the stories of people you've helped, if they let you tell those stories. If not, you need to find stories to tell, right? Because insurance is all about taking care of people, and it's about telling people stories. Who did you help? How did you help them?
So this is where I can see the relationship with journalism, because you've got to find this.
You got to find, exactly. You need to find the story.
So
it's relevant to them.
On a really practical level, that's actually an excellent point. So there are lots of brands and companies out there who I'm convinced have got thousands of great stories.
Yes.
But often tell me they haven't, or they don't know, or they can't find them, or whatever. So how are you going about finding? You've got thousands of customers. How do you find these stories?
It really is difficult to find. But if we come across a case, we've alerted old guys who deal in operations, who deal with customers. If they have a story that is where the customer has been willing to share the story, then at least we have a few profiles we can feature, right? If not, we tell the stories of people who've gone into industry, right? So we actually have stories about financial advisor representatives who've joined us, right? Because we have to do recruitment videos. Why did you join us? What is their story? What else do? We tell stories about, actually, you need to treat a product like a story as well. A product is created to help customers. So what was the problem you saw? How is this product going to solve that problem? And how do you make it interesting, right? We had a conversation earlier about not needing to have the particular skill to be in the industry. I can't remember what the example you gave. But when I was hired, I said, I don't know anything about insurance. I didn't, in fact, I have many policies. I don't know what all they mean, right? And the person who had the conversation with basically said, I don't need another actuary, right? I don't need another financial planner. They're all here, right? What I need is somebody who can bring it all together, right? And it's about change management, right? It's about having that energy, to go through it was a merger, right? Having the energy to go through this merger and being one on the team and bringing everybody along. And I can do that.
Yeah, because you were part of the team that had to bring Singlife together with Aviva.
Correct.
Aviva being a sort of an older legacy kind of company. Singlife, I remember Singlife launching, and it was the digital insurance, buy direct through mobile, young person's insurance. These are two very, very different beasts.
Personalities and base types. Yeah. So we had to bring the teams together, transform, and come up with a new. We're still on that journey. It's been 2 years actually, but we're still trying to fix things as we go along, come up with new products which are more relevant to a younger audience, come up with digital products. Transformation takes time, right? And Singapore market is challenging, but we still have to push forward, build a new team, build a new culture, which is exactly what we are doing. And I think we've succeeded somewhat. We're hitting most of our goals for the year in terms of metrics like culture, staff engagement, and so on.
So there's two things there I want to pick up on. One is you said about you've told the operational staff that you're looking for stories.
Yes.
So have you sort of trained people to sort of be journalists, to sort of have the instinct for a story? How do they report it to you? I'm convinced that the people at the coalface have got the best story, probably more so than the C-suite, who are a little bit too on message for my liking. But how do you get the story from there and get them to identify up to you?
The thing is, when there are complaints, it comes from there. And guess who will have to respond and help with the response to complaints, customer complaints, right? We have to write the letters, make sure the tone is correct. So it even took a while for people in the company to realize there is a brand comms and marketing team, and we should consult them when these things happen. It took a while, but now it's almost SOP, so much so that we actually had to come up with templates, completely new templates of how you respond to customers, right? And if there's an exceptional issue, please alert us, right? So they will. There are all sorts of issues, you wouldn't believe it, all sorts of things can go wrong because the tech has screwed up or something has gone wrong. But we're dealing with people, right? And everybody has your own story. So if somebody, you wouldn't believe it, there are also stories of people who try to scam the system, right?
Okay.
Right, that we have to deal with carefully because, we're regulated, they will complain to this, that, the other, and we'll deal with all different complaints. People always think insurance companies are out to scam them. But I really think that people who are in the industry want to help people. I know it sounds like, people are real, but, I see the work they do. And I was one of those skeptics, yeah. Generally skeptical by training because I was a journalist, right?
Yeah.
But I do see people really trying to help. And I also see the other side, customers who are trying to scam the system, right? And one bad claim can set you back, can set your whole business back.
I like the idea though that the potentially the complaint can be the source of a good story, because I think if someone has an interaction with you and it goes well, well, it should go well. That's the point.
Yes.
Yes. But if something goes wrong and you fix it, the potentially the delight in that is even greater. That's not to say you would want things to go wrong, but I think for a lot of brands, a lot of companies, they still think of a story as being structured a bit like a press release, where everything was great, then we did this great thing, and now it's still great. That's not a story, that's an announcement. A story, there has to be some struggle, there has to be some stress, there has to be some sort of obstacle. So I think it's quite bold to sort of say, well, so you can turn a complaint into a great story as long as you resolve it properly and you go about it.
You've been fair, you've gone out your way, you treat the person with empathy. That's all very important, right? I smiled when you mentioned press release because I have to train my own staff to write a news release in a way that is easy to understand and in a way that the journalist cannot get wrong.
Well, like you said, journalists are very skeptical, and I think if you overload a press release with jargon,
not only jargon,
marketing, e-commerce jargon, but also industry, insurance industry jargon.
Both. So
it sets alarm bells off ringing in a journo. They sort of think, right, what are you trying to cover up by using all this language?
Yeah. I look at everything that goes out to make sure that the language is correct and so on and so forth. I mean, when we
So you are the editor, you're still the editor-in-chief.
Yeah, I know.
It's like a publishing mindset.
Terrible, yeah. So it's like everything that goes out to the public, everything that goes out to the customer, make sure I have a side of it. Because the rest of the company might not necessarily write the way we want to present ourselves as a brand. Friendly, conversational, like your friend, your buddy, your coach, right? That's what we want to come across as. So I literally have to chop jargon and everything that goes out. And I ask my team, do you understand that? If you don't understand that, then don't write it that way. Go back and ask them what it means, right? Because I'll go, what does this mean? And they're like, because I don't understand it. How do you expect the customer to understand it?
I've had a few conversations doing this podcast where somehow complexity is seen as of greater value. You know, if you deliver lots of words or lots of slides and lots of language, it's worth more money. No. But how do we get people to value simplicity? Particularly, take from my point of view, I'm a vendor. I sell to companies like yours.
Yeah.
I want to earn well, but I feel like I need to show you proof of work.
Cut the slides, get it down. There are only 3 key points. I learned this from several people. Professor Tommy Cole, my father, always used to say, 3 points. That's it. In a speech, 3 points. Only expect your audience to take away 3 key points because we can't process more than that. You can't be bothered to. You cannot focus that long. I can't, right? Yeah. Get it down. For me, my trainer was get it down to 2 minutes, get it down 1 minute 30, right? What do you tell somebody 1 minute 30? If your letter is more than 1 page and you haven't gotten to the point to the customer, it's too long. Right?
Everything's an elevator pitch.
Well, not that everything is an elevator pitch, but you must be able to distill the essence of whatever you want to tell someone in a very simple and clear form. If you can't do it in 2 sentences, what makes you think you can do it in 3 pages?
Well, it's the old sort of cliched, allegedly Mark Twain quote, if I would have written you a shorter letter if I'd only had the time. The other point I wanted to pick up on then was you talked about culture.
Yeah.
What's the role of potentially storytelling in creating your culture? Because I feel like at the moment, we've all heard culture eats strategy for breakfast, but I feel like culture is left to sort of a slide that has a mission and vision and values on. That's it.
That's not it, because when we started, that was how we came up, right? Top down, vision, mission, values. Yeah. How do you translate this to the ground, and how do you get this permeating the organization? People actually believe it. People actually live up to it. We talk about being customer-centric, right? Everybody says we're customer-centric. Customer is first. What do you do to enable your people to realize that? Right?
Storytelling, you have to report on what you've done.
Exactly.
Proof points.
That too, yes.
Okay. So what I quite like is that you're not making stuff up. I mean, I know you do that as well, but you're just reporting. You're reporting on things you've done. It's journalism in that sense.
Yes. I was just going to talk about NPS. It's going to get so boring. We
Go on, go on. I can always cut it if it's no
score.
good. Yes.
You know, literally, so that's how we measure, right? Customer satisfaction. We do an NPS survey twice a year. Okay, it's a huge ass survey, 8,000 people this year. I mean, yeah, we started last year, so this year. And we look at a whole string of things, right? Customers do these very in-depth surveys, and we have definitely improved a lot. One was on clarity of customer communications, right? Last year, it was one of the top 3 things which made customers feel move the overall score, right? They said it dropped because I guess we have a new baseline, right? It improved as well, but other things became more important. The Singapore customer always believes that the most important thing is to have value for money, by the way, even with your insurance policy. So that's always one of the big things, right? I was surprised that clarity of customer communications came out last year. It's on top 3 things. It's still very high, and we're still ahead of the pack. I cannot emphasize to my team how much that we constantly have to do it, not take it for granted.
Well, I think in finance particularly as well. I mean, money in finance makes me
Yes.
very anxious. I didn't get any sort of financial educational literacy as a kid. Now, and I still have that fear, even though my bank
don't
actually
have
has
enough,
money
right?
in it.
Yeah.
But I still have that fear
I know
of checking my
exactly
balance.
what you mean.
So the simpler and sort of almost cuddlier you make it, the easier it is for me because I get very wound up thinking about it into
It's not
finance.
cuddly, it's hard to make finance cuddly.
Well,
But simpler.
all right, not approachable. I've got to not be scared to approach
Yeah.
it, to engage with it, because I have been for a very, very long time. So we've talked about reporting, finding real stories, telling them, making them proof points. But you make up stories. You do marketing campaigns. You've just released your second campaign with starring Pierre Peng,
Yeah.
and that's fictional. How's that different? How do you
That's
come up
about
with
the
that stuff?
story of, well, we've done a lot of research, right? Who the profile is of the customer you want to target, what their aspirations are, what they want to achieve. We did something called the Financial Freedom Index study. Yeah. All this ties together and comes together in the ad, right? We feature a couple in there who are dreaming about their retirement and what they want in their retirement, right? And we bring it back to reality. They're in a small flat with 2 kids, right?
Yep.
In their 30s, probably 30s, dreaming about retirement and sending their children to university and so on and so forth. And we say, it is possible. You got to start planning. You got to start planning now. 30 years down the road, yeah, it's possible. When you're 20 or you're 30, you don't think about 30 years down the road.
It's good you're going to live forever.
No, because you think it's too far away. 30 years down the road, right? That's how I felt.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'm now 30 years down the road. I haven't gotten financial freedom yet. That's why I know I need to work for more.
Still working on it.
Yeah.
But so just to pick you up on that, so that is quite a mainstream.
It is.
Couple, kid,
Correct.
retirement. I feel like the generation coming out, I know there's not always such clear demographic lines and whatever, but I feel like that's quite a mainstream, old school dream. What about people who have different dreams?
Watch the space. There's another ad, but we're not releasing it now.
Okay. Good. Well, no, because we know each other outside of this sort of fake studio environment, and you know that I struggled when I was looking for financial advice because everyone was trying to force me into that box. And I'd sort of said, I want to save up money for my daughter's future. And a lot of the financial agents I spoke to couldn't accept that I didn't necessarily want to send her to university. I want to have some money to do travel or start a business or whatever. And to be fair, and this is, it was actually the Singlife agent I went with in the end who kind of gave me alternative planning. But that's what makes me just wonder about, we've got to tell more than that story. I feel like the 2.4 kids story is a mainstream one, but there are many different lifestyles now.
In fact, 2.4 is not so mainstream anymore, right? Many young people do not want to have children.
Yeah.
See the state of the world and they don't really want to have children, right? There'll be many singles out there. So we need to customize our product and our message to each of these audiences. It's just difficult to do it in a big brand ad. You choose one segment first, and you look at other segments, and there'll be more work coming.
But I think that in itself is good advice, because I've been in the situation where the client has wanted to shove every single message into something.
You heard me about 3 points.
Yeah, there you go.
Unfortunately, not all clients understand that. Not all clients were in content before, right?
So obviously as a journalist, you developed an instinct, along with training and things like that, as to what makes a good story. So what is that from your point of view now in the marketing side? What makes a good story for a customer?
I talked earlier about finding profiles of people, right? And relating to them and so on. So we actually found a young man who had testicular cancer. He is a friend of one of my staff. That's how he agreed to do it. And he survived it, right? And we helped to tell his story because he agreed. Well, he told his story first, and we didn't pay him. He mentioned us, right? Because we were the insurer from his MINDEF insurance days.
Right.
Right. And he talked about what happened to him, and it went viral the first time it went out. So maybe you're not the target audience. I don't know. He's in his late 20s. Okay, to be
I've seen a lot of your stuff, but you produce a lot of stuff, to be fair.
Okay. So it was about his story, and it was very touching. I wondered whether we should put it out when I first saw it, because it was a little bit melodramatic to me, or over the top to me. I felt
is that in the treatment and the execution, or
it was just him talking, and I
felt. If that's authentically him, I don't think that's fine.
But I did feel that are we being exploitative? I said no, we're not. You know what I mean? I had that little bit of that struggle. So as long as he's okay, and you all think I needed to get abuse for my team. Okay, so this is what I believe is very important. I have a team of staff, for people who work with me, spanning from I had a Gen E intern.
Which ones are they? Is my daughter Gen A?
How old is your daughter?
8.
Your daughter is definitely she's definitely Gen A, but Gen A 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds. Okay, I have Gen Zs, I have millennials, right? I have XYZ, and I have boomers. Right? I have a whole range of people on my team. And all of us bring different perspectives and outlooks. Okay, we are marketing, talk about audience marketing, we are marketing primarily to the millennials. Basically, that's the broadest group that everybody's marketing to, right? As you say, this age group, disposable income, blah, 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 blah. Okay, but we also have to market our products across the whole spectrum, right? So Raina's a young man, right? If you look him up on our Instagram, you'll find him. He is 26, 27. He survived this very traumatic testicular cancer. Talked about his story and how he ended up left with one, right?
That's how it works, I
guess.
guess.
That's how it works, right? And how he discovered it and so on. And he got a lot of response. And he came and also gave a talk to some of our staff, right? Came and had a sharing session with the Singlife Financial Advisors team. And it was very genuine. So we're happy to work with him because it's about awareness. People need to understand that you need to plan in case something happens, right? You don't have to spend a lot of money, but you need to make sure that you have a plan, a hospital plan that can take care of you. So otherwise, your bills might, hospital bills are very expensive, right? They add up. Even if you go to the cheapest class ward, right? If you don't have savings, you can't pay for it. So make sure you're covered.
I like the fact that you considered whether or not it was exploitative.
I
Particularly as someone who's been a journo, where you get that story
absolutely.
whatever happens. But I think that's
even then, I could have stories from my journalism days of what we do not put on air.
Is that a line that exists in some sort of guideline for your team, or is that just a decision you made personally?
It's called OB markers, right? It's a judgment call by the editors in charge, by the editor, and so on and so forth. But like I said, I got the views of a few people. I got them to trim it down, but I felt it was too long. There's also judgment, right?
Yeah. The other thing, when you mentioned your team then, I think for a marketer, you have quite you have a unique team structure, I think. It's not the typical.
It was so unique. But
well, I've worked with a number of departments and whatever, and clients, and typically it's sort of marketing exec, marketing manager, marketing director. Everybody makes PowerPoints and goes to meetings, which suits me because then they can hire me to do other stuff. But you have a very different structure. So just take us through the structure of your marketing department and also your facilities in-house.
Okay, I'm organized like an agency, basically. Yes. I think I'm organized like an agency. I have a PR team, comms and PR, handle media. They can also do media training. I haven't got time to. I told people I was going to do writing training, but didn't get around to doing it. I cannot train a whole organization. That's media, comms, and PR. Also, if there's investor relations, right? And then there is the brand piece. So I have people looking at the brand, in charge of brand, building basically the brand TVC, the brand ad. They don't want the TVCs anymore. The brand ad, maintaining brand standards, how do you come up with logos, collaterals, or subsidiaries, how do we make our brand distinctive from other brands, blah, 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 right? Brand, comms, marketing. Marketing is divided into what in agency you call the suits, the solutionists, the suits who handle the clients. We have internal clients, right?
Yeah, of course.
Every department is an internal client of marketing. They want to push a product out there. Marketing will help you push the product out there. Your KPI is to help sales hit their targets. I always say marketing exists only to help sales hit your sales target or exceed if you can. Okay?
Nice.
Never attributed success. Success is hardly attributed to marketing, but we know we do the work to help them, right? So marketing suits. I have a performance and planning team. How do you optimize your media buy? Very much on digital, all free-to-air, outdoor, 360, right? I have a content strategy team because content is king. Everybody is doing content marketing, and we have in-house expertise if we can't afford people like you and other filmmakers out
Despite
there.
the excellent value I
Right?
represent.
Yeah. We have our own team because we produce so much content, right? Yep. Every single piece of communication is a piece of content. Every single EDM is a piece of content, right? So this team comes up, ideates with the product internally with the team. And then there's the execution team, right? So the content strategists work with what you call the creatives, right? So they will execute the collaterals, and I have a social media team. I have MarTech as well now. Did you know that? Marketing technology came to me as well. Okay, so that's
Gotta have that, I suppose.
well.
But you staked out a corner of your office. You have a studio. You have a proper studio.
Yes.
It's a proper creative facility.
Yes, it is.
That's what I love about it. You're an insurance company, but when you go inside, it feels like an agency. It's a proper creative space.
Yeah, it's a fun space. So we have
feel like
meetings
this is
in
quite
there.
unique
We
still.
brainstorm in there. They brainstorm big meetings in there. We have a little studio. We film quite a. Decided we're gonna have to film the CEO doing monthly things. Then we have to film this, to film that. Get a proper space so we don't have to hire all the time. We might just hire a crew, right? Depending how complex it is, or we might film in house. Saves us money.
And people can experiment in there. Like and I know from your social guys, they play around in there. I mean,
we do
innovation is one of those things that gets talked about so much. But innovation is really just people playing.
I said we do yoga in there. Did you hear me?
You do yoga?
Yeah.
Is that part of the creative process?
That's part of the relaxation process. But I used to do the classes, so I don't know whether they actually relax. My team relaxes.
Mandatory yoga by the boss. So you've obviously you've come from this journalistic background. You've worked as an editor. You're now a marketer. So I think there's a lot we can learn from you. So for those people who are perhaps traditional marketers or communicators and they want to get better at storytelling, what are the elements of a great story? What should they be looking for? How do they identify one, and how do they tell it?
Oh boy, it's become so instinctive that you can even make a boring story a good story. You have to, because that was a training. You have to make a story a story, even if
You got to fill the paper.
to it. Right?
You got to fill the channel.
Yeah, you feel airtime.
Yes.
Video. What are the elements? It's best that there are people involved. There's some tension. There's resolve. You know that. There's a twist at the end. Positive, hopefully. Always positive. This is the thing I told everybody in my company because I had big town halls. You know, all those sob stories that other people tell about how Amma has cancer, father has lost his job, so Ami can't go to university. Oh, if only they had bought insurance against my dead body. This sort of sob story is never going to go up in my company.
Desire for a while. It's like, can we make the audience cry? I saw briefs that just said, can we make the audience cry? Why? Like, is
That's
that
a good story. I mean, making...
Yeah, but if everyone's doing it, and if that's the only emotion associated with your brand, I think it's a bit weird.
Negative association.
Yeah.
And insurance is about making sure you don't have to get there, right?
Well, it's almost, it's fear marketing.
It's fear marketing, yeah. Fear mongering, fear marketing.
Yeah.
As far as...
The world is scary enough.
As possible, yeah. There's no shit going on in the world. As far as I'm around, I said, under my watch, no, I'm not going to do those stories.
Good. What is the process for you in your organization, because you do have this slightly unique structure, of bringing a story from concept to consumer? How quick does that happen?
Ooh,
Who
depends.
pays for it? And what's that
depends.
process?
It depends. If it's a brand story, within my team, we ideate and come up with it, right? We also based it on research. So, okay, how long did that campaign take us? Maybe 6 months after we appointed a new agency?
From concept to completion.
Execution, yeah. Because we executed by August. August we were filming. September it was ready and it launched in September, right? Based on media buy. We started only in February or March. That's when it's within.
And you started with the research, or you commissioned the research?
The research was commissioned the year before.
Right.
End of the year before was done. Yeah, and with that, and we constantly go back and ask for validation. So we had a few concepts. We went and did focus group testing. So marketing is data driven and research driven. That's the other thing people need to realize. We don't just pluck things out of the air. And the more data you have, the better your validation points are. However, because it is a creative process, experience and creative work is important, right? You have judgment based on your experience. And sometimes the data may not gel with it. And that's when you need to make a call whether or not to go with what you think or your team has agreed is right for the creative work to go through, right? So that literally happened with us. We had a few rounds. We came up with the idea of the agency, brainstormed based on the data that we had. We tested it. Some of the testing didn't come out so on point. So we modified what we were going to do, but we didn't change completely. And then we created the ad and launched the ad. I think it's doing well so far. I don't have enough feedback from the research yet, but we will soon. So.
I always think of experience and instincts as being sort of just it's a different data set. It just doesn't fit on a spreadsheet. It doesn't fit into a graph, but it matters. It counts.
It does, definitely, especially when an editor and journalist, right?
Yeah.
Or you're a creative, you haven't seen it. What works, what doesn't work. It's not instinct, yeah? It's your experience telling you something, right? That becomes instinct.
Very nice. And when you said you were working with an agency on that, so the research was brought to the table, and are you quite collaborative with your agencies, or is it take this, go away, come back when it's done?
I like people to brainstorm. So we brainstorm, we argue, we challenge, in my team as well. Because I believe that the more data points and more people you converse with, instead of getting confused, it should get sharper. Some people get more confused, right? But you need to, it sharpens the argument so that the outcome is better. It's always better to have more views. I mean,
But you need, I think, having sat in some of these things with you, I think you play quite a good role of chairperson. I.e., you invite all the views, but you're quite good. If there's too many views and no one's chairing it, no one's...
Yeah, you can go...
All right, let's take that, let's leave that, let's move this way. I think that's quite important. I think that's one of the things that's missing from brainstorms is sometimes they become a bit of a free-for-all. I do think someone needs to be there to sort of lead it and make sure that... And also make sure different voices get heard. Or channel.
Yes. Making sure all the voices get heard,
Yeah, because there's quiet people in the room and they sometimes you need to create space for them.
Yes, because some people can be very loud and dominate. So I have to learn not to do that. But eventually you step in and direct traffic. And then, everybody, Also, it's about understanding the people in your team as well, right? Being able to work through all their strengths. And understanding who's reliable, whose view covers what angle. One of my previous bosses really taught me that, right? He would always consult a few of us and make his own decision. So to me, it's the same thing. The more views you get, it sharpens the argument because you can see perspectives from different people. We're all different, right?
Feels like a news conference. It's good. You talked about the desire of, well, only because you've been there and done it. I think other people find newsrooms fascinating. I mean, one of the most exciting things I ever got to do was go to the New York Times news floor. I mean, even though it wasn't like the old days.
Would be interesting.
But, everyone's on computers now. It wasn't like Bernstein and Woodward shouting at each other, but it was pretty cool.
We used to shout at each other in our newsroom. No. Yeah.
You talked about the value of research prior to, gathering your insights and stuff like that. What about the success of storytelling? How do you measure? You talked about NPS scores. You also said it doesn't matter a jot if it doesn't sell. So what are the different metrics that you gather together to
So we do a proper research on how the brand is perceived as well after we launch the ad, right? On two fronts. One is on the ad itself, what's in the ad, right? And secondly, on the brand perception. What does it mean for the brand? What do you think of the brand, right? all those relatability things, and is it relevant, so on and so forth. So we track every month, every quarter we release, we go through it, and it's something we've done from the start, right? So that validates whether or not your brand is improving or not, in a way. At least that's one. If people ask me, if the CFO asks me, so why should I spend another 2 million on brand, right? I'll say, look.
And what about with stories? Do you think you've developed a good model of what stories are connecting with your audience and what aren't? Are there certain stories you wouldn't tell again, certain stories you would?
Well, we learn with everything that we do. So yeah, there's some stories we might tell in a different way. Some stories work better than others. We always look at the stats on socials. And you just it's a lot of experimenting, right? Because you never know what's going to go viral, really. Or there are elements, but you don't want to be so contrived, right? I don't want to be so contrived. I want content to be a bit more organic. People talk about ChatGPT. I think they are using it to do like first draft sometimes, or complex things, but not for the really creative stuff, right? Because the ideation is in groups, in little squads, what we call squads. It's a tech term, and we have to adopt this then squads. And I think that also, they will brainstorm together, and then they'll come and present it to me. And I'll be like, why didn't y'all involve me from the brainstorm from the start? And then they're like, no. Okay. But I think really having all that brainstorming and different ideas working together, and then evaluating every time you put out something creative, reacting, watching how the audience reacts in terms of engagement, and then tweaking is important.
I think sometimes having the boss in the room for that first brainstorm can be a little bit intimidating for some people sometimes.
So I don't insist anymore. Anyway, they found a good rhythm. So.
But I like the fact you borrowed a bit from news, a bit from tech with the squads, and I quite like there's let's borrow a bit of best of here and a best of there and make our own thing happen. You also, because you've got the internal creative capacity and facilities and stuff like that, I feel like you produce quite a lot of volume. I mean, you're used to filling a channel, filling a newspaper, whatever. To what extent
counted how many pieces we've been doing. Really, just a KPI of the guys, right? Yeah.
But obviously, when you do a an ad now.
Yeah.
That's one big, a lot of effort.
Because that is a lot. That's the big brand ad.
But you do a lot of other stuff beneath that.
We do small videos as well, right? Because those are used for digital.
So what's the value of volume? I think there's still, the reason I ask is I still think there's a lot of people who want to get to that guaranteed hit single. I want to write a guaranteed number one hit single, which I don't think is possible, no matter how good you are.
So we do the brand as the overarching thing. It's all connected, right, to everything else down the funnel. So then the product level stories are told as well. When we don't have brand money, you have to pay more attention to product, because product is actually what we have to sell at the end of the day. And on digital, everything is very calculated, right? I don't think the finance guys or even the sales guys always want a clear correlation of whether this ad or how much you spend on digital advertising actually makes a difference, right? So I make my team chart every time we launch a campaign what happens to the sales numbers. And it's proven that we actually help. Well, you can't prove that, but there's a correlation. When we launch something, it goes up, right? It's surely not a coincidence because it's done several times.
One of the things I think is quite interesting about what you do, when I look at your YouTube channel, which I don't see everybody do. One is we've talked about the sort of weepy ads you get in insurance. A lot of your videos are funny. You do quite a lot of comic and sort of funny sketches. Yes. And the second thing is that you don't tend to do a one-off. Like if you've got the set and the performer and the filming, you'll get like a dozen pieces out of it. That's quite cool.
It's long tail, right? What we call long tail. I was going to say that's why I hesitated over the cancer survivor story as well.
Because it was a one-off.
Because it was a weepy story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a one-off. I don't feel like exploiting him, right? This thing about milking emotions, but it was positive at the end of it. So that's fine, I guess. Yeah.
But you recently, the thing that comes to mind at the moment is you recently did a series of sort of like an NS parody type thing with the mother of an MS. So just explain how that went.
Okay, so comedy is important. Okay, so if we don't have the resources to film ourselves, we actually call it an open pitch, right? Oh, cool. No, it's a closed pitch, not open pitch, sorry. So we call for a pitch with a few agencies to come in, and we gave them a very thorough brief, and they came up with new concepts, and we always So part of personality we want to project is that we're fun, we're funny, we can laugh at ourselves, we're Singaporean. So this ad really was a mother's fear of what a son goes through in national service, right? And yeah, we had fun filming it. They filmed it at near the Bukit Turf Club.
Cool.
Near some little forest, yeah, and she was great. The actress was great. It was funny. You know, actually, it's odd because I had very vociferous internal reactions to that ad. A couple of the people in Singlife didn't like the ad. Right?
Okay.
It's not targeted at you. It's okay.
Well, actually, no, but that's a good point. Years ago, I was doing something for Panasonic that was targeting 16-year-old girls with some sort of hair tongue or whatever. And it was the ultimate sign-off came from this sort of 70-odd-year-old Japanese man in Tokyo, and who said he didn't get it. And it's like, I'm not sure that really matters, does it? That you don't get it? I think that's fine. So you just said, you did a call to a certain number of agencies. How many different vendors and agencies do you work with, and what kind of relationships do you have? Do you have sort of the one big one, and that's it for 5 years?
No. So for those, these were like what we call product level videos. Got them very cheaply.
Very cost effectively.
Very cost
good value for money.
Good value for money, good agency. We work with a production company, right? So we basically, because people in my content team have contacts and been in the industry a while, right?
Well, I know they have production experience, they're writing experience, they're actual creators.
Exactly. So we know people, so we ask them to come for a pitch. A few chosen people. And we all sat through and evaluated the pitches, and we're very pleased with what we got. We're happy working with them. And I won't say it's not about the relationship, right? Because relationships are important.
Yep.
But we are very new, right? And I work with people even if I don't know them, the concept is good. Some of my other people in the team know these people. Relationships are important because trust in how the team is going to execute is important, right? People can come and pitch to you, this, that, the other, but if they can't execute, that's going to be a problem, right? So I have changed. The big brand agency has changed, but I had trust in the first agency. I have trust in this agency I'm using now. I'd rather not change agency every year, right? It just so happened that this year we thought, we have a challenge. We want to call for a pitch. Close pitch again to see what other ideas come up. So that's what happened. And
but I like that just generally being open to new ideas throughout the year is quite a nice. Not everybody does that.
You have to be just things, fashion changes, things change. Marketing is always about being on the pulse, right? Though some things in storytelling are perennial, which we talked about earlier.
Yeah, so the principles are perennial, the executions can change.
Yes.
And that's where you need to.
Oh my gosh.
Watch your research,
I've
keep your finger on the pulse.
I've been watching old movies recently and old series. I was watching the pilot of Moonlighting, and I'm like, audience here too young or old, I hope. The pilot of Moonlighting. Oh my God, 1990 maybe. And I was like, oh my God, today, if you watch it, it'd be like, it's so slow.
Right. So sitcoms, and the rules of sitcoms still apply, but the execution is very different now.
Yes. And of course, people today don't understand this. You're filming on film, and you didn't have all this digital technology to do an effect. One mix took forever to execute.
Right.
I don't even know whether you realize this.
Yeah, I had the lever.
Roll the other tape.
Yeah, and you push the lever. I used to do that.
Whoa! Then you drop one generation, right? And today, resize, crop out, change the background, just like that, right? Makes things a little bit too easy sometimes. But then you have endless options, which is why the discipline and focus of the director and the producer is very important. Because you can have 2,000 options, but you only need one.
This is I'm definitely not going to use this as an opportunity to talk about AI, because I've just got back from South by Southwest Australia and I've heard nothing but AI all week, and most of it not particularly useful. But I think this is the danger, is this idea that, you can create so much volume and so much versioning of stuff. But the problem is if you start with a core idea, you're going to create 200 more versions of crap. And I really fear this is going to happen. No technology has ever lessened the workload, ever. It just means that you're going to be expected to produce more with less.
Yes.
But
Yes.
there needs to be some discipline within that. You know, you can't keep tweaking.
I've recently caught up with a few of my former colleagues and we're talking about AI newsreader, and the machines are learning from us, right?
Yeah.
So if you watch AI the movie, do you remember it?
Yes.
Haley Joel
Spielberg
Osment.
remade the Stanley Kubrick. It was originally a Kubrick idea.
Yes,
Yeah.
Haley Joel Osment.
Yeah, and the British guy with the receding
Jude
hair.
Law.
Jude Law.
Okay, yes. It's going to happen sooner than we realize it, right? We are giving machines the power to do what was uniquely human, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to learn faster than we do, change faster than we do, and adapt faster than we do, right? Creativity, we think, is a innately human thing. If the machine learns how to be creative, what use is that for us?
Don't know, you're scaring me now, Debra. What am I
Seriously.
here for, Debra?
Which is exactly, right? Which is why, you need to think about this. What is the difference between a robot and a human in terms of creating content?
Again, I don't want to get too heavily into it, but my belief is that if you look at the AI, everything it comes up with is based on optimizing what's gone before. But I don't think it has a great deal of vision for the future. I think humans process their influences in a very different way. My big worry right now about sort of data-driven marketing and communications and stuff like that is that we're so focused on what works, we're not necessarily focused on what's
What doesn't work,
distinctive.
or
No, what's
maybe
distinctive, what's different.
Yeah,
And this is the problem with trends and optimization, is we're all optimizing to the same
correct.
point. So someone has to make the judgment that says, I know all the data says that works, but everyone's doing that, so we're going to have to do this. And that's where
You need an
I
opinion.
think, you need an opinion.
And
A person needs to
instinct.
do that. Yeah.
Experience.
But I don't know how many jobs there will be.
Experience is what the machine is learning, right? So you need an instinct and emotion. What makes good content, right? It has to be relatable. Actually, the machine can learn that too, if you think about it. What relates to humans, right? What touches
But it can only learn. It only wants to be the most popular. So if you type into Google, what's the best whatever song ever written, it finds you the most popular song, not the best song.
Yep.
And best is subjective as well. That's my concern. Is that quality and popularity are confused in the sort of computer world.
Yeah.
We'd all just listen to Taylor Swift if it was down to computers. That's all we'd ever listen to, all of us. You wouldn't need anyone else.
Popularity is what democracy is about. The popular vote, right? Might not be the best.
I mean, there's always a mainstream.
Best person for the country, but he's the most popular person for the country. So the machines will, like you say, bring us towards that. So the people who are more different and distinct will get pushed out to the fringe more. Why are we talking about this?
Well, we end up where we are with film and music and stuff like that, which is either you're making a $200 million Marvel movie or you're shooting something with your mates for nothing. But that middle class of mainstream movie has disappeared. And you're seeing the same with lots of mediums where that middle class
that middle will be what the machine does, right? That will be the fodder of the masses, right?
guess so.
Marvel's just amazing, right? But it's also
Marvel
very,
is an
very
amazing
popular.
business, but I don't know anyone whose favorite movie is a Marvel movie. There's just what we
one
get to
Marvel
watch. That's all we get to watch because it's all that's in the cinema.
Well, but you also realize that Marvel was based on a whole lot of creative comics. Yeah. So that was all creative, right?
But I think I think they've overplayed their hand now. I mean, it's just getting exhausted as a franchise or a world or whatever you call it. But like you said, we're off topic now. So my last question for you is, you've had the opportunity, more so than most, to tell a really broad range of very fascinating stories. Is there a story left, be it within your work or personally, that you want to tell?
I know this story. I know this. Actually, there are two stories I want to tell. One is about Mrs. Lee Kuan Yew, but none of us will be able to tell that story.
What about Mrs. Lee Kuan Yew?
What about her? What did she think? It's nowhere. Because Mrs. Lee was the most private person ever and the best confidant ever.
But when he met her at university, she was the smartest student in the class, not him.
She
was smarter than him.
He. Not at university, at Raffles College.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to correct you there, history. But She's only done one interview. Yeah, that's a story I would have liked to tell. Nobody can tell the story now. The other story I'd like to tell is the story of my family, but I think it's too late.
What?
My-
Just to
paternal
find
side
your history.
The Soon family, because I don't have time to do research. A couple of the old folks have gone off already. It's very complicated. Malaysia, Singapore, Brunei, kind of story that I don't even know. My children will not bother. Young people don't bother about their own family history. You know that.
You only become concerned about it as you get older, and particularly when you have kids of your own.
Even when you get
Suddenly the
older,
legacy
you may
matters.
not, unless you are just generally interested in history and that sort of thing.
But I wasn't until I had a kid, and then I realized that because I'd had kids older and my wife was older, that my kid probably wouldn't have as much time with their grandparents. So a few years ago, I sat down and I interviewed both my parents for 2 hours each about their lives, and I haven't been able to edit it yet because it's too upsetting because they have the most
which is why
horrendous
I'm not
lives.
doing it. My mom is still around. My
It's
dad
too
is
upsetting.
gone. But my mom's the youngest of like 14 children, and my aunt and my uncle are still around. But I just don't want to start. And then there's the history of my father's side, which is a big, complicated Peranakan family, right? Yeah, I would like to, but I still don't. But I don't want to. Do you know what I mean? It's a story that is very complex.
Once you start turning over those stones, it can be a
Yeah.
bit. Well, I mean, the next generation, you won't need to search for it. It will all be out there on social and in the cloud.
Not be out there.
You don't think so? We're all putting our lives
Well,
on
where are you going to get it? It only up from this point onwards. But think about it.
My daughter will be able to see my whole Facebook history and any YouTube videos
But
I've
not
put
your
up.
fathers, not your grandfathers, not your great grandfathers. That's the point. Where do we all come from? We all come from somewhere.
Yeah,
won't
I mean,
come
for our generation, we have to dig. But the next generation won't have to dig. It will be there for them.
But not only from us. It's very short history. 50 years.
Heavy stuff. Deborah, that was
more
wide
serious?
ranging.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
they got a bit heavy.
I don't know what you're going to edit from this, man.
I was there. We have plenty of outtakes there. So that was wide ranging and interesting. Thank you very, very much
You're
indeed.
welcome.
Thank you so much for watching The Business of Storytelling. If it's your first time, don't forget to like and subscribe and share and comment and all those wonderful things. Also, don't forget to look at Vimeo. They're my generous sponsor. They're the platform with everything you need to make, manage, and share brilliant videos at vimeo.com. Thanks very much. We'll be back soon.